Coming up, we're talking about Windows on ARM.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Preece.
Or is it leg? Hi, Shaun Preece. How are you?
I am great, thank you, Stephen. How are you?
Do you know what I was going to say there? Do you know what I was actually going to say? I think we could start again, right? But I think actually,
it's not possible.
I'm just going to tell you what I was thinking, and then you can decide for yourself which was a better intro. Because I mean, Windows on ARM is what we were going to talk about. That makes sense, right? That's logical.
Yes.
I was going to say Windows shows a bit of leg, or is it ARM?
Oh, that would have been better. That's too late now.
Oh, well,
okay.
never mind. I'm disappointed.
That's very good, though, Stephen.
Yeah.
Well
it's also
done.
a bit 70s, but you know, we can scrape by.
Yeah, okay. You're kind of awake this morning. I like that.
I am. I don't know why. The coffee's working. Decaf, if the doctor's listening. Yeah. Do you know what? What?
How are you feeling, by the way?
Sorry, not on edge at all. What? Wait.
Shh, relax now. How has your heart rate been, Stephen?
It's fine.
Scott?
It's absolutely fine. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Perfectly normal.
Okay.
Absolutely
Good.
Fine. No problem at all.
Good to
No
know.
issue at all.
Good.
No issue at all.
Okay.
No, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Listen, I am so excited because I've got a great tip to share with you. It's not mine, but I've got a great tip to share with you today. What?
No,
What?
good.
Yeah,
good.
again?
I'm sure you have got a great tip, but I'm sorry. I've got some breaking news.
Breaking
Well
news.
done. You are on it. Well done. I got some breaking news I'm kind of really annoyed about because I can't believe I haven't heard about it until now. But I saw this on social media and I checked it out and it's absolutely true.
It's not fake news.
It's not fake news. Did you know that WhatsApp is no longer available on the iPhone 5, iPhone 6? Anything below the iPhone 6 Plus or anything basically. Yeah, all right. I know. We'll get into that. But the point is, it's gone. You cannot run WhatsApp on anything that doesn't run iOS 15.1 anymore.
Okay.
And I saw a post on social media, and it was from someone who volunteers at a sight loss organization. You know, one of your local ones, one of the smaller ones, you would say.
My local one.
And no, wherever they're from, right? The point
Wherever
being,
you are.
they get lots of donations of iPhones, you know, older iPhones that people don't need anymore. And they give training and they give them to people that, you know, maybe at first time or can't afford one themselves. And they use WhatsApp a lot for that group. And now it's just gone. It's no longer supported.
Oh, wait a minute. This is terrible.
Well,
no, I'm against it. Can we start a protest?
Well, look.
I'm serious. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's funny. Like, I mean, initially you hear that, right? And you go, who's got an iPhone 5 in 2025, right? But
exactly.
You're absolutely
entitled much? Yeah. But that's absolutely right. Now, look, okay, I understand and I accept these are older phones. Of course they are. But yeah, I can understand how people are kind of upset by this. And how did I miss this? It is, I checked it out and it is in Meta's frequently asked questions. And yeah, it did state on there from the 5th of May, WhatsApp will no longer be supported on anything not running iOS 15.1. Before that, it was iOS 12, which I think was the 5C and below. So I will say this, and I think I did state this in the social media post when I replied, Android isn't effective. I mean, you know, there's absolutely no reason.
Effective or affected?
Affected.
Oh, I
Sorry,
see. Yeah,
affected.
Yeah, that
So
could take the conversation in a very different way.
You could still run WhatsApp.
Feedback at doubletaponair.com. Effective or affected?
As far as I know, anyway. I don't know about really old Android phones, but I'm just saying, you know, you don't have to automatically jump to the iPhone for someone who hasn't had one before. But beside the point, I just thought it's so important that people know that. If you are running an older phone, just be aware. If you do rely on WhatsApp, which I do, I use it over anything else. I message, especially if you prefer the audio messages. iMessage is just terrible now for recording and sending audio messages. It's awful.
I'd much rather use WhatsApp.
Yeah, WhatsApp is great. It's absolutely fantastic. So just be aware. It's going away if you have an older phone.
Yeah, that's sad. And it's interesting. I know WhatsApp's got an interesting take-up, hasn't it? Because I remember when we started saying to people, hey, you can contact us on WhatsApp, you get people saying, well, I don't use WhatsApp. I live in wherever I live in America, for example, and I don't use WhatsApp that often. In fact, none of my friends do. And I find that quite interesting because the take-up it seems to be quite regional. And you would think that if any country in the world was going to take it up more, it would be America because that's where it started, right? But it doesn't seem to be as popular over there for some reason. I don't know why. But within the blind community, certainly in many other parts of the world, WhatsApp is very popular. On both platforms, actually. But this is bad news because there are lots of organizations, like you say, local sight loss organizations. I wish some of the nationals would get involved in this country, but yeah, okay, whatever. I know in Canada, for example, they do have the Phone It Forward campaign, which is where you can send your old smartphones in to CNIB. They'll refresh them. They will be able to give them out to people. This is something that actually deserves a lot more conversation than we ever give it. Because there are a lot of people out there who this is their first ever interaction with a smartphone because they either can't afford one, or even if they can afford one, they might not be able to know how to use it. And what comes with that phone is training and support, and that is really useful. And it's vital, actually, because it's funny, we talk a lot about the different ecosystems between Apple and Google, and we talk about, well, at least there's some level of choice, right? You can choose between Apple and Google. There's your choice.
Yes.
Or you can buy a different type of Android phone. If you're on Android, lots of different choices there. But the reality is that, yes, there's lots of choice, but you still need a phone. You still need a smartphone. That's one choice you can't avoid these days. You still need a smartphone. And yes, well, you do. Because look, I mean, you need a smartphone. Certainly you need a phone number. You need an email address. You could probably live with a PC, I guess, as long as you can access online. But again, if you're struggling with a smartphone, you may well be struggling to use a computer as well. I know in my experience going back in years, and not that long ago, but I remember sitting with a group of people who were in their 70s and 80s. We were doing an event called Looking Forward, and that was the whole thing. It was about looking at technology that could assist those people in everyday life, and they were all blind. And we put on the table a laptop, an iPhone, and an iPad. And we wanted to see where people would kind of gravitate. Nobody touched a laptop. Just absolutely no one was interested. Didn't know where to start. No idea.
Terrifying. Press the wrong button and it all falls to bits. That's what people think. And that's totally understandable.
The blind people navigated to the smartphone because it talked. And of course, the iPad could talk as well. But we were interested to see how people with some remaining vision would behave and prefer between, say, the laptop and the PC. They immediately the laptop and the iPad. They went to the iPad. And again, it was that thing of, I mean, in those days, it was the home button that was kind of doing all the heavy lifting, right? Because if there's a problem, you press the home button, take you right back to the start again, so you couldn't break anything. Nowadays, it's all swipes and gestures, and that creates new challenges for a lot of people. And these are the things that the kind of silent majority never hear from. You're never going to hear these people getting in touch with us to share their stories, unless, of course, you call in, and we know we have had a few people who do this. But, if you're struggling in any way, you need some support. You need to be able to get online. You do, unfortunately, these days. It's part of life, your bank, everything. I mean, we're moving towards a cashless society. We know that no one wants it, or at least certainly a lot of people don't want it. Yeah. But we are moving in that direction. We're moving towards a world where it is digital currencies or digital payment methods like Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever. So you do need to be online. If you want to book an appointment with the doctor, it's going to be digital. If you're filing your tax, it's going to be digital. It's whatever it is, it's going to be digital nowadays. It's all moving that direction. It already is. If you want to buy something online, you want to buy something from a store. God, even when you go into a store now, they're telling you, okay, well, that's fine, but you can, read online or get more information online. I was listening to my newspaper article the other day. It said, read more on this story online from a newspaper, like from a printed paper. I mean,
but it's the access, right? We all know, and now more than ever, when it comes to technology prices, I mean, how do you get that technology into people's hands? It's a really difficult question.
Yeah, and price is a huge factor, but it's often not price for a lot of people. There are many people who will have grandsons and sons, daughters, grandchildren who will put technology in their parents' hands. Mm. It lasts as long as the family members in the room, and then as soon as the kids go home, it goes in the drawer.
Yeah, and if that family member thinks, like a lot of people do, that, hey, if you're visually impaired or blind, you can't use it anyway, they're not even going to attempt to let their relative have a look or see what it can do. You're absolutely right. It changes everything, right? I honestly, I'm not going to say I couldn't. It would be so hard to function and do everything I do every day without a smartphone. It just would.
You know, if you ever want to know what it's like, I mean, if you ever sit with someone who has never used a smartphone before, and I've done this many times, you sit down with someone and you learn from the experience of what they don't know. It's really,
Yes.
it really does open up your mind to the challenges that exist out there for so many people.
Yep.
It's like if you can't get the handle of gestures and touch screens and how it all works, and we're used to it, right? We do it every day. This is what we do. It's natural to us because we've forced ourselves. And I do think blind people are. I think more often than not, blind people are more likely to push ourselves to do this, to learn this stuff. But that's fine if you're that kind of person. A lot of people aren't. And especially those people coming to vision loss later in life. They may have used a smartphone at some point and now just have no idea what to do. So you've got the fundamentals, but you've no idea what is going on the screen. There's so many issues here with digital access. And when it comes to cost and the whole digital divide thing is just, it's a story we need to develop into more because honestly, it's a huge, huge area of concern. And it's even, it kind of lays itself out even more when you think, well, okay, we found a solution, right? There's a local sight loss organization giving out phones. This is great. We've got a solution here and it's working and we're getting support. And then you find out that the app that everyone's using to connect and communicate on goes away.
Yeah.
And Skype's dead as well.
I don't think there's an answer. Well, Teams will still work, maybe.
God.
For now, I don't know.
Forget it.
May not.
Just
Actually.
forget it. Is Google Duo still the thing?
Oh, I have no idea. I got confused with that. Yeah. WhatsApp. It's universal.
There you go. There's your tagline. You can have that one for nothing, Meta. Right, can I tell you my tip now?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that.
It's not mine. It's not mine, okay? But I stole this from the internet.
Oh, well done.
Yes.
Everyone does.
Well, that's right, exactly. Those are 7 great
From
ideas in the
who,
world. They've all
though?
been done.
Have you got a name check
yes,
at least?
I will absolutely name this guy. He's been on the show with us before. Sean Randall, who has been with us on the show before, and he's a great guy. And he was even greater when he came up with this tip, because on Mastodon he was posting about labeling, and he was talking about setting up his label printer. So I was kind of taking some interest in the post and reading through it. And someone said in the comments, so hang on a minute, you're blind. You're using just a regular label printer? It's not a Braille printer. It's not like tactile. Nope, just a simple label printer. Mm-hmm. And they're like, right. And so he says, I label all the food in my freezer with these labels, right? He said, now my wife is sighted. He's blind. He said, and I wanted something that would kind of work for both of us. He said, so all I do is just have my phone set up to recognize short text, and whatever I pick up, it'll read, right? So
yes. I'm
like, hang on a minute. We talk about Braille for labeling things around the home, but when you actually think about it, it's quite an expensive way to label things around the home, right? You've got to buy some kind of Braille labeler. I saw Braille. I know that there's the old kind of Dymo gun one that's still, I think, doing the rounds. But, I saw a Braille labeler that was going for like £1,200. I mean, it was
absolutely ridiculous. I bought one and it was totally plastic and fell to bits after the second use. I was so annoyed.
Yeah. I remember those ones. I used to have one of those Dymo ones years ago. And it was a regular Dymo one, not that one. But you're right, that they're just plastic and cheap, right? And so they fall to bits and all the rest. And then this other one was £1,200. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And of course, just printing out something, say you just want to label up a plug, a power outlet or something. So it kind of got me thinking, this is genius, actually. Because A, it solves the problem for anyone else who's sighted. So if you said to someone, you bring someone into the house and you say, hey, look, just be careful what you're unplugging down there. You can unplug the TV if you want. And they just look at the plugs and go, oh, it's TV, right? Unplug the TV. That's great, right? But then also you could use a pen friend, I guess. You could label it with another sticker. But again, that's another piece of technology you have to have. You've got your smartphone with you. You can, use Seeing AI short text. It can immediately see the text. I thought, this is genius and it's cheap. I thought you'd love it.
Are you recommending just normal print text?
I think Sean has caught onto something. Not you, the better Sean.
How have you not thought of this before?
I don't know. I think this is going to fall into the who knew category.
What? That that Seeing AI, short text, real time.
No,
OCR,
but just joining the dots, right? See, 'cause everyone always talks about labeling around the home, right? And they say, well, you can buy a pen friend, or you can buy a tactile labeling system, or you can buy, Braille, or whatever it is.
If we're talking about freezer items, for example, if that frosts over, then that printed text isn't readable through Seeing AI. That's where something like, I don't know, NFC comes into it, NFC labels.
But bear in mind, he's also thinking about his wife who's sighted here.
Yeah, okay.
And that would be the same problem for anyone else.
Off.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, how would anyone else who can see it do it, right?
Oh, okay.
I like this.
I'm not poo-pooing the tip. It's a very good tip. I'm just saying I'm surprised you're so surprised by it.
I'm not surprised by it. I'm surprised by my reaction to it. I'm surprised that I realised this is a genius idea. Because I've got a little label printer, and you can buy them now for like 50 quid, $100 or $70, whatever. I mean, they're not hugely expensive compared to what else is out there. And they're likely to be, around in 10 years.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Why can't you just buy a sheet of peelable labels and put them through your normal printer? Why's it got to be a label printer?
Because I like buying things.
Okay, and plus it's a bit of a pain to set up the template for those.
Oh, it's horrible.
Is it going through that list? Yes, it can be.
Do you ever remember trying to do that? I used to do that with CDs. Remember the CDs? You would get the label and you'd have to print the CD out, and it would never quite match up right with the paper. And you'd go through, you'd waste so much of the labels trying to find the right layout for everything.
Yep.
No, label printers is a much better idea.
I set up a Word template for the articles for the blind, or the free blind postage, depending on where you are in the world, labels. Yeah. They were great, I've got to say. It took me ages to set it up, but I could just type in an address. It would auto-fit all the text in there, put the lined labels in my printer, and it would sort it out. But I've lost them, and I have no idea how to do it again now. So, Okay, well, thank you, Sean Randall, for that great tip. It is a great tip. I'm just surprised by Stephen's response.
No, sometimes it's the simplest thing you don't think about. But look, when the Russians were building, or it was the Americans, wasn't it, was building a pen to write upside down for the space race, and then the Russians used a pencil. No one went, oh, stupid Americans. It was like, okay, fair enough, good idea. Actually, that's genius, well done, we're Russians. And I don't think we'll ever say that again anytime soon. But, that's the reality, right? So, I think if a good idea is a good idea, and sometimes we don't always think of the simple things.
That's very true.
And also, and there were people in the comments, by the way, there were people in the comments saying, what, you're using your eyes, or you're using, regular text, and you're just scanning it. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's actually genius. I love that.
I will give you that. Okay.
Listen, I can also just mention while we've got some time, because we're going to talk about Windows in a minute with Greg Hayes. Greg's back with us today, by the way. Looking forward to that.
Yay.
And it's a conversation we recorded last week. And we found out today that there's going to be a Surface event. Well, not today, sorry. Yesterday we found out that there's going to be a Surface event happening today. So we're going to be telling you all about that tomorrow. We don't know what's coming. We just know Surface and Copilot Plus. Something is coming, basically, is the announcement. So, I love Copilot.
Have I mentioned that before?
Well, I've been getting into it. Yeah, well, here's my thing, right? We won't talk about this with Greg because obviously we did chat last week, and we otherwise we would have done that because I can't quite go back in time. And AI is good, but it's not that good. But no, I was setting up my PC the other day, and had a
Windows.
Nice. Yes. I was setting up the Windows PC.
Windows, yeah.
Yes, I said Windows. What's wrong with you?
No, it's just you're moving away from the Mac now, are you?
No, I'm using both. Okay. I've always used both. Right. I've told you that a billion times, but usually you don't listen to a damn thing I say.
As long as you don't exaggerate. Carry on quickly.
Told you a million times I don't exaggerate. So
totally thrown you.
No, I just love that line. I just love doing that line. It's just such a great line. It annoys my wife every time I say it, so I make sure I say it as much as humanly possible.
A million times.
Okay. So I was setting up, and I was getting this printer scanner combo I've got. It's really irritating me, right? This is just becoming ridiculous. So I get it hooked up, and I downloaded, eventually got a piece of software from the HP website, called HP Easy Start. I thought, okay, what could possibly go wrong here? So started up the software, started going through the process, and managed to get through a couple of the introductory elements of it, and then it get to a point where it wants me to, I I guess, continue at some point, and I'm tabbing, and it says button, and then I tab again, it says button. So, there's two buttons. So I thought, well, we'll just take our chances, hit the button, and it disappeared. The app disappeared. So okay, clearly that was the wrong one. So tried again and went through it again a couple of times, gave up in the end and said, right, I'm going to get Aira to help me out here. Now, Aira, I know a lot of you will know that Aira is available on smartphones, but it's also available on your desktop. And through the same account, you can use your minutes that way as well. You can go to aira.io/desktop. And when you go there in a browser, you can go to a link, which is on that page, that will take you to a sign-in page. And basically, it's like signing into the app. It's like a web version of the app, right? Or web app.
Yes.
Or
on your smartphone. Yes.
Okay, explaining how a website works. So anyway, I go there, I sign in, and it says configure devices. And I thought, I'll just check, make sure everything's okay and up and running before I start. And it just said, to do this, you're going to have to enable your microphone for permissions. So, okay, fine, get that all the time. You get that little annoying pop-up. You have to F6 to finally get to, and then it allow your microphone. Yep.
Yeah.
But it didn't show up. The only one that came up was a location. And so I allowed that, and I expected another pop-up, but nothing. So I refreshed the page, and I tried again, and I thought, okay, I'll just try making a call. Maybe when I make the call, it will do it. Made a call. The person connected at the other end, I could hear them. They couldn't hear me.
Oh, great.
Couldn't get it to work.
Joy.
I am not kidding you when I tell you several messages to Sean while he was busy doing other things. Also, a couple of phone calls as well.
Yes.
And 2 hours in total of my life trying to rectify this issue. And learning, by the way, along the way, about all the settings that exist in Edge and Chrome. And,
we did a deep dive.
And Copilot was involved. I was chatting to the Copilot man as well. He was helping me out. By the way, really helpful thing on file sharing the other day. He helped me out on, but I'll tell you about that later. So, that was great. And thought I'd got it all sussed. And tried another call. No, nothing. Couldn't get through. So tried a number of different things. Tried a number of different restarts. I thought I'm going to have to reset this entire PC, and I really did not want to do that. And the only thing that one of the agents said to me was, they said, we can't see your camera. And I said, well, no, there is no camera connected to this computer.
Yes, because this was a tower desktop.
It's a tower desktop, right?
Yeah,
and
this wasn't a laptop.
And we were talking about other devices as well. I said, no, it's a tower desktop PC. There's nothing else in here apart from what the device I've connected to it for headphones and microphone, and there's no camera. And that got me thinking, should I connect a camera to it? Would that make a difference? So I hunted out an old webcam. Thankfully, I found one. Because, there's always just one lying around. And plugged it in. And as soon as I went back into the Aira web app, it asked me if I'd like to enable my camera and microphone permissions. I said allow, I made a call, and I got through right away. So if you're setting up a computer and it doesn't have a webcam on it, and you want to use Aira on the desktop, you gotta have a camera, or it will not bring up the permissions window to ask you if you can use your camera and microphone. Why? No idea. The Aira agents didn't seem to know the answer. I'm putting this out there for them as much as for everyone else to please, use that in the troubleshooting, because that would have saved me 2 hours if I'd known that in advance. But I think I've managed to save the world, quite frankly.
You fixed the problem that arose when you were trying to fix another problem. Did you fix the
I did. I was actually, at that point, I was ready to go to my bed. But I thought, I want to get this printer fixed. We got the printer fixed. The scanner's working. Hooray!
Hey!
It's finally.
Well done.
I was like, I was so excited. I finally got a scanner working. And now I can't find the letter.
All you had to do is set up a totally new computer.
Yeah. Can't find the letter now to scan. Don't know what I've done with it.
Oh,
forget it. Just shut it down and went to bed. Right. You're listening to Double Tap.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
At our listeners' request, we are going to continue to talk about ARM processors on Windows PCs, because lots of people, Sean, are interested in this. I've got to say, I've been playing around with it in the virtual machine category, I guess, or capacity perhaps, having a virtual machine running the ARM version of Windows on my Mac Studio, which has been a really interesting experience, and I've learned a lot. But we did have listener Lindy come on just recently, and Lindy wasn't too happy with me, as most listeners generally
A bit mildly.
aren't.
Yes.
Yeah, because they were saying, look, quite frankly, you had someone on who was talking all about this, from their own experience. You kept cutting them off, talking about cheese or something. So as a result, I thought it would be nice to get Greg Hayes back with us today to talk more about this wonderful thing called ARM processors on Windows and his experience. And I'm not going to cut him off.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Welcome back, Greg.
Hello, Stephen. Hello, Sean.
Lovely talking to you, Greg. Bye.
Now, I might cut you off now, Greg. So, yeah, Lindy was really interested in what you had to say on the ARM experience, the Windows ARM experience. But we did get an email from John as well, giving his opinions of his experience with an ARM laptop.
Right.
Now, he was highlighting some of the problems he was having with some of the compatibility with running not necessarily older programs even, but just not everything was running or would run at all. But you haven't experienced anything like that, right?
No, I certainly haven't. I have a Dell, Latitude 7455, which is one of the ARM computers. It's got the new Qualcomm chip. I guess it's about a year old now. And I've had no problems with compatibility. When it first came out, there were applications that were having to run, a lot of applications that had to run in an emulation mode. But in the just under a year that they've been out, lots and lots of applications are now just running native. So you don't even have to run on a compatibility mode. They've built ARM versions of the applications. And I haven't run into any of the problems that he did. So that I did hear that podcast, and as I recall, it was not the actual main applications, but he had some problems with some plugins, right?
That's right, yeah. But, I mean, to be fair, though, Greg, you would expect an ARM version of an app to run perfectly on an ARM machine. Of course you would. But it's that emulation that's important, right? Because as popular as ARM is, it's still not guaranteed that you're going to get an ARM version of an app.
No, it's certainly, it's not guaranteed, but there are so many applications. As I said, I found a list on the internet of things that were ARM native, right, built for ARM, and all the browsers that run on any Windows PC I've ever run are now doing it. And in the early days, for instance, Chrome wasn't on the list. That was a big one. Another problem early in days was, I think it was Google Drive was having problems. That's gone. So with time, many, if not most, applications that are out there have built up ARM-based versions. And the few that I have that haven't had an ARM-based version have run in emulation, and the emulation has worked wonderfully for me. I have not experienced the same problem John did with the plugin.
Okay, I'm going to come in on the question about my issue because, and look, I'm not pinning this to you, right? Because look, I know you're coming on here, you're going to not defend this, you're just giving us your experience, and that's what we want.
I didn't build the ARM
No,
processor.
exactly. You didn't personally do this. I mean, it would be a lot easier if you did, because then we could shout at you. But
Okay.
Can't do that. But no, here's the thing. I have found in my own experience here, and it's a strange thing, right? So I was telling people on the show about the fact I've been almost getting OCD over OCR. This whole kind of, getting a little bit obsessed, trying to scan in documents the old-fashioned way. And I came up against the first hurdle being I couldn't get my scanner to be recognized by the PC. And I thought, that's weird, right? Because I've got one of these all-in-one printers, it's a LaserJet, it's a mono LaserJet with a scanner built in. Yeah. And the printer works fine. It's fine. But the scanner just won't work. So I thought, well, okay, what I'll do is I'll go to HP, the website. What a terrible website. Went there and tried to download the software and managed to get the drivers for both the printer and the scanner separately. and also like an easy start type application, which kind of guides you through the whole process. And got all that downloaded, and I made sure, because of course running a virtual machine, you're kind of, there's additional challenges going on, right? So it's a case of, is it definitely pointed at that particular machine? Is it definitely recognized? And it was. It was, essentially in parallel software, you can determine where you want a device to be aimed at. So when it's plugged into the computer, it may be plugged into the Mac, but you can say, look, I only want this to go to the PC. And it was showing up in the device manager, but it wasn't being recognized by any software. And so I had gone through this process. I downloaded all the drivers. I then started to install them. It couldn't install them, just wouldn't work. And I thought, goodness me, is this a problem with ARM? Now, of course, I did the same process on a PC running Intel. And okay, granted, yes, I could probably fry an egg on the laptop at the same time, but I was able to install the drivers and get the scanner to work. So, yeah, clearly it is an issue with ARM. Now, you could also say it's an issue with the VM, but I don't think it is. I don't think so, because other things do work. So it's not, if nothing worked via USB, I'd say, okay, clearly something's wrong. But this particular device wouldn't. The other device that wouldn't work was my Pearl camera, the JAWS camera that has been around for a long time. And that wouldn't surprise me if it didn't have an ARM driver either yet or ever. So I'm going to discount that one a little bit. Although,
does it even have a Windows 11 driver?
Well, that's the thing, right? Again, works perfectly on Windows 11, though. Works absolutely fine.
Okay.
Works with JAWS 2025, Windows 11 on an Intel PC, not a problem.
Okay.
Worked absolutely fine. Recognized it instantly, first time plugging it in. So, it's clearly to do, and it shows up again. It shows up in the device manager, shows up as Peril, but I can't install it. So I guess my question is, for people who might have legacy software, legacy hardware as well, that's something you really have to think about beforehand, or at least in the trial period if you buy one of these things, right?
Yeah, I agree. And it's just, to me, it's the same as when we move operating systems, right? When we first went from, whatever the Windows 10 to Windows 11, that hasn't been a huge problem, but maybe Windows XP to Windows 10, we ran into all these same kinds of problems, right? There weren't good drivers available. So you had to make a decision. Should I buy a new operating system? Should I buy the new PC with the new operating system? Because I do have this legacy hardware that might not run on it. So I think of it as it's the same situation. You have to be careful. It's a wonderful thing about, you can buy these things, quickly try the things out that you're scared might not work. And if that doesn't work, okay, well, then return it and try again next year. But I've always had that problem when I've moved between operating systems. So I had the same thoughts when I was moving to an ARM on Windows 11 versus Intel on Windows 11.
I mean, that's a great point, actually. There's always that nervousness about when you're switching to a major update on an OS. You're absolutely right. The only thing I would say is that ARM hasn't proven itself that it is going to stay around yet. I mean, this is what Microsoft's, I've lost count, third, fourth attempt at Windows on ARM.
Sure.
Look, this has been their best attempt so far. But are they going to stick with it, or are we going to have another attempt in a couple of years' time? At least with from Windows XP to say Windows 8. Windows 8 was a bit of a nightmare accessibility-wise, start screen and the problems.
Sorry, Sean. I've got to jump in on that.
Because, don't cut me off.
I will cut you off. Because I wasn't they weren't shouting at me for cutting you off. They were shouting at me for cutting Ray off.
That's true.
So that's fine. No, look, I think it is absolutely the case that they are all in on this. And I don't think this is a trial period. That's not the impression I'm getting. To me, this is the future for Microsoft. The challenge is going to be the legacy. Really, this is where Apple had the benefit of being able just to sort of draw a line in the sand and say, this is it from this moment on. We move to this. And, I still think there's Intel support going on, but it is reducing, obviously, by the month. So, more people now are being expected to move over to Silicon. Well, they are. I mean, look, they're not going to support Intel forever. And Apple are good at this. I mean, they're good at it, and you could argue bad at it, right? They just decide that's it. The date is set. It's finished. And you got to move on, at least in terms of support. They're still not supporting PowerPC, right? I mean, they moved on. They said enough was enough, and that was it. And that's where Microsoft actually can't do that. That's the problem in some ways. They can't do
Well,
that.
they could. They choose not to. They choose all this. They could take the Apple line and say, you know what? Any drivers not signed after 2024, bang, you're out. Everything needs to be updated. All your kernel, all your x86, x64 needs to be updated. But
and
they
then
haven't
the
done it.
world ends.
Well,
on that
yeah,
day.
quite possibly. That's the trouble.
Okay. First off, Apple are awesome, right? They've got a beautiful
Here we go.
ARM computer. It's great.
Brace yourselves.
Yep.
But
Boxing gloves.
what's their market share? Okay. How many
Massive.
PCs
Huge.
are out there of Apple versus Windows PCs?
Yeah, no,
And
you're right. You're right.
So, and yes, they can make that, they can draw that line and say, this is where we stop. And they are able to convince all their, well, it's not even convince. If somebody wants to continue to make Apple software, they have to go and change it to the new, what do we call it? Well, it's also an ARM architecture, right?
But well, okay,
Basically.
but why can't?
But Windows
to
can't.
Sean's point, but why? But to Sean's point, though, why can't they do that?
Why can't they do that? Because of all of the enterprise computers out there.
Legacy. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right, but again, I think isn't it a case of right? So they want to maintain and they want to make sure that is continued to be
Yes.
supported to some degree.
Yeah.
But they have to draw a line somewhere at some point, or they'll never move on. In fact, if they don't draw a line, won't ARM fail?
Well, here's the deal. They kind of have, right? If you want to use the newer, more powerful, more efficient system, you go with ARM. And if your legacy stuff doesn't work, then you can stay with your Intel. So that's in their mind, that's the line they've drawn.
Well, hang on.
I
Hang
almost
on.
wish, guys, that they
Hang
had
on.
gone further when they went with this, because there is so much bloatware in order to keep bloatware is not the right word, but so much stuff in the operating system to keep legacy going that it's too fat of an architecture. So I kind of wish on ARM they had said, no, if it doesn't work natively.
Oh no! Come
Go
on!
away.
No one
they
would have
wouldn't-
bought it in that case, Greg.
Yes,
that would
okay,
have been.
but there you go. That's my point. It's
Yeah.
if everybody they keep it because everybody wants it, but we suffer for it. Either way, that's my point. And long story short, there are things that don't work. And again, I think of it as the same as going to a new operating system. There were things when I moved from Windows 8 to Windows XP, or I'm sorry, the other way around.
The other way around.
XP to 10. I don't think I ever used 8.
Yeah, well done.
That I had to stop using. I had an old scanner that I never got a driver for. It's kind of the same thing, but it's not. You've run into something on your scanner, and I respect that. Okay, and that's going to keep you from using that. The other gentleman has used something, but look at the list of what is compatible. All the things that have been changed and made ARM native, and then again there is emulation for a whole lot of other stuff that for me has worked great. You've given me a couple examples of things that haven't worked great, but should I not go with the newer, better technology because I want all my old stuff to work? Well, that's a choice.
Well,
you have to
that's a
make.
personal choice, isn't it? Because ultimately,
That's exactly right.
if you, like me, for example, with certain pieces of hardware, I'm thinking, well, okay, this isn't going to work. But the reason I wanted to have this conversation and bring that up is because I think people need to know that. Because this is not going to be marketed by Microsoft. Things might not work when you buy this. It's not a great marketing slogan. So, they are probably not going to talk about that, but we need to talk about it because that's the reality.
First thing I would do if I was thinking about buying a new one, and first thing I did do, is I went out and I looked and went into Google or ChatGPT or whatever you like to do, and said, what ARM-based applications are out there native. I think I tried to find this the other day. Qualcomm supposedly has a list of them, but I found another list, and see if the things that you use are on there. Now, will that do every plugin and every piece of hardware? No, but it quickly told me which pieces of software. So I tend to use I use the Office suite. So that's on there, of course. It's Microsoft. No surprise that one's there. Adobe products are out there. All the social media platforms have ARM-based things. Even many of the entertainment, I'm sorry, a lot of editing software. This is the one, this is the road we went off on last time, but we were talking about Audacity and how it might not work. And so, yes, you might have, Sean, you might have a problem. I've since learned that Audacity has it. Apparently not their plugin, but I look through this list and I see so many things that do work and I think, okay, this will work for me. And now let's talk about the advantages. Okay. Yes. Is there a disadvantage? Sure. We just talked about, you have to be careful. You have to go with sorry about this, folks, with your eyes wide open. Pun intended. But if you find the things that you like, what are you going to get from it? And for me, okay, again, I have a Dell, the 7455, right, which is an ARM computer. What do I get from it? I get something that lasts all day, right, which is a wonderful thing about ARM. Does not heat up, and that's part of the reason why it does last all day, because it's really, really efficient. It's got great battery life and doesn't heat up much, and it's as powerful, if not more powerful, than any other PC I've run lately. So I've got this, finally, all-day computer that I can walk around in. I never plug in. I usually work from home, but when I go into the office, I don't even bother to bring a battery charger anymore because it's just going to work.
Yeah.
And everything I've got, and by the way, that was a challenge because I ended up having to hook this up to our Windows domain. And the people, the IT folks at my company were worried about that because, we're going to auto install lots of applications. It's just, when you put yourself on an enterprise, you can do things like, it's called group policy, and it just auto installs things, right? And so it might mess you up. Well, everything worked. And most of the things that they auto installed, antivirus type software and other things that they use to monitor people's PCs, they worked. They're in an emulation mode in most cases, but it works just great. So another great thing, and this is not only on ARM, but you've got Windows Hello built into all these. And so I open up the laptop lid, it looks at my face, and boom, I'm in. I don't have to type in a password, don't have to do anything. So
I love that, by the way.
It is, yeah. And I know you have it on your Surface, right? You have an Intel-based Surface, and it's just awesome. And the nice thing about this is when it's on a laptop, the hardware is all compatible. You don't have to see if, I remember you did a podcast. I don't remember if it was on this show or the other show you used to do, Sean, but you were doing a fingerprint reader, right?
That's right.
But it was an external one. This, when you have it on a laptop, everything comes built and it's going to work with Windows Hello beautifully. So, yeah. Are there things that you have to look out for? Absolutely. And is it wise for us to make sure that everybody hears that? Absolutely. So I'm glad you're bringing it up. But are there so many other advantages to it? Yes. And so I'm quite happy to have looked over that. And again, in the early days, some of the things didn't work. But it took a little time, and manufacturers or developers came and, like the Google Drive thing. First few months, couldn't use Google Drive. Now I can use Google Drive if I want to. It just takes time. And I do believe you're right, Stephen. There is no way that they're getting out of this business. Microsoft got into the ARM business. Actually, Intel tried to get into the ARM business years ago with, what was that thing called, Sean? Windows RT?
RT, yeah.
What a piece of junk, right? But now,
trash.
Yeah, exactly. I had a Surface a couple of years ago, Surface X, Surface Pro X, that had a a version of Qualcomm, and it was good. It wasn't as good as it is now, no. But this year they came out with a really good chip. Microsoft totally jumped on the bandwagon. They gave them so many advantages over Intel. They actually, if you tried to buy an Intel PC, you couldn't get one that was, what do they call it? The
Copilot AI.
Copilot plus PC. Thank you.
Yes.
You couldn't get that in ARM or Intel for 6 months, I think it was, 4 or 5 months at the least, because they wanted to prop up Qualcomm, or I believe that's why they did it. Give them a chance to come out and have something unique. It's not going away, and Intel and ARM are now trying to find ways to make their chips as efficient.
Yeah, look, if you're any doubt about that, just look at the Microsoft Store, right? That tells you all you need to know. What is available now are ARM-based machines, and that's the end of it. They are going in this direction, and they are leading the charge with it.
I think they're going to stick with Intel. Don't get me wrong, if that's what you're saying, Sean.
Are you finding other stuff in the Microsoft Store?
No. See, the problem is, and it's the Apple situation again, they have total control, hardware and software.
Yeah.
Qualcomm could decide, you know what, after all that amazing hype pre the release of these new chips, afterwards it was a bit disappointing. The reviews weren't great, okay? They could decide, you know what, we're out of that. I think you're right, and Microsoft are all in on Windows on ARM, and I think they've actually got it pretty good, the actual software now. Going back to the RT, the software side, the emulation was absolutely trash. Never mind what the processor was. Right. They are still relying on other people, and that could be dangerous. There's no guarantee that Qualcomm could just disappear from Microsoft's world.
I think that's a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't worry as much about that if I'm honest. I mean, look, any company can fall away. Intel could fall away, and if any company's going to fall away, it's got to be Intel, right? I mean, yes. It's literally going to toast itself. That's what's going to happen to Intel.
Let's talk about the reviews, though. You talk about these bad reviews that came out, right?
No, not bad. Just disappointing.
Who were the people that were reviewing them, and what were they saying wouldn't work? Most of them, they're just the same. A lot of the YouTubers that are out there,
yes,
love their Macs, by the way. But they would go and try and load all the stuff that they use, right? Which I don't think 95% of your audience are the people that are going to be trying to do video editing and audio editing and all that kind of stuff. And they had some problems early on. As I've said, even that has come back and now they have native versions.
Transitional period, I'll give you.
But so they, in the beginning, when it first came out, they ran into things that didn't work. By the way, that was true on Mac too. It just went faster because those people had to, if they wanted to run on Macs, they had to go and figure something out quickly.
Let's be honest, Apple managed that transition much better than Windows did, or perhaps even could.
Because they
I don't want to be unfair here to Microsoft, right? Because there is this legacy aspect to it. The job of turning that tanker is much of a bigger job than Apple had with theirs, because Apple said, we're going to do this, we're going to move on. But they brought the developers along with them. And I know Microsoft did too, but there are just more developers. There's just more people developing content and apps and software for Microsoft. And of course, there's legacy software in there that we may all still be using today. I mean, I think about things like Kurzweil 1000. I think about, Duxbury. I think about apps like that, which, are on a much slower release scale for updates. Now, I don't know if they have ARM versions. I imagine probably not at this point.
They may emulate just fine.
They may emulate fine, exactly. I haven't gone as far to test those yet. That's going to be the next step.
Well,
but I will say that I would have tested that on an actual Microsoft Copilot Plus PC rather than on a VM to give.
Well, can I just say on the scanner note, Stephen, there is actually an interesting thread on AppleVis about ARM on Windows, and one of the people on there say, yes, of course, there's a huge problem with Epson scanners and ARM. There's a lot of talk about it in the forum, and so I believe your problem is down to the ARM compatibility rather than the VM, because it is a known factor when it comes to scanners. Not every scanner, but a lot of the Epson and HP.
And that was the weird thing about the Mac side of things. Everything I plugged in, even legacy stuff today, works fine. Works without a problem. And I think, it's interesting. Again, it was just, I think the whole process was managed better. I take your point about market share, Greg. I do, but I think, it's still a huge company. It's still a huge, a lot of computers out there in lots of different markets. And also, to be fair to the YouTubers you're talking about, the people who are buying those Macs mostly are in the creative space. So they need to know that their software is going to work. Well, so, that's why the comparisons are made. I think it's a fair comparison.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
It's a fair comparison, but
oh, no, Greg, cut me off.
I did.
You carry on, Greg. No, you carry on.
Yeah, it's a fair comparison, but again, it's just like when the new iPhone comes out, right? And all the YouTubers get on and say, why bother buying it? Because, or whatever. They do whatever they do, and they do their tests. And what they're always doing is they're testing it against the software they use every day. And again, I just don't think their audience or your audience is using all those same applications all the time. So do your homework, make sure that the applications that you use regularly are on the list. Go out and do a Google search and find it, and then try it. And then if you run into that, what was the gentleman's name? John?
Yeah.
If you run into something like that, okay, do the things that you think might be problematic. Try it first. Right, so that you stay within your return window. And if you don't like it, turn around. But Sean, I think you would be. I think you'd have a good time running with us because you love to, format your computers and start all over again.
Do you know, part of me, Greg, when you say that, part of me, do your homework. Part of me is sort of fighting against that, saying, well, people don't want to do that. They just want to buy a Windows computer and just, carry on as normal. But I've got to say, a neighbor of mine came to my door the other day with a Chromebook saying I couldn't get his Windows. This isn't a Windows laptop you bought here. I know it was a bargain, but this is a Chromebook. It's totally different. So I look, yes, of course, people need to do a little bit of research. I am with you.
And more than likely, the average user, like him, right? What are they going to use? They're going to use a web browser. All the web browsers work. They're going to use some social media. All that works. They're going to use an Office application, maybe, to write emails and Word documents. Not only Microsoft Office, but what is it, the Libre? Or I can't think of the other one.
That's right. Yeah.
That works natively. So the average person, all the applications that they're going to use are going to work. Might they run into a problem with their legacy hardware? Okay, you got me on that. But I don't think they're going to have problems in most cases with software unless they're trying to do something fancy.
I'll go with that. Yeah, and to be clear, I think it is a transitional period. I know I brought up about it. There's a danger to go away, of course. But I think you're right. I think this is a transitional period, and eventually it will switch. No,
I think the opposite. I think what will happen is you'll see increased competition in this space. We're already seeing it with Intel and AMD. They are trying to push forward.
Intel can't get it sorted.
Intel's a mess. I agree. Intel's a mess. And look, it is literally a hot mess if you feel any laptop that runs it. Because, and that's the thing that really irritates me. Like, I've got this fantastic Lenovo laptop here. It runs Intel. And every time I turn it on, I can barely hear the jaws out of the terrible tinny speakers that it has because of the fan that is just blasting hot air at me all the time. And that just drives me mad because especially when you've got, you got a MacBook sitting there that's absolutely silent. And don't get me wrong, back in the Intel days with MacBooks, goodness me, it was dreadful. I remember once I was doing a Zoom call with someone around about 2012, just at the time everyone was starting to jump on Zoom calls. And I had to jump on a Zoom call. The machine just died. It couldn't even handle the Zoom call because the Intel fans were just going constantly. It was fogging up the screen. I mean, it was ridiculous. And, this is something Intel really they either have to get this sorted or get out of the game because they're not performing as far as I'm concerned. And their latest editions of their processors, they are minor improvements. I mean, that's why you see a lot of reviewers now when they talk about what laptop's the best to buy. A lot of them are saying, look, if you go back a few years, in terms of processors at least, you're going to find a really, decent machine. If you really want to go down the Intel route, that'll be fine. But of course, there's AMD as well, which is, we never really talk about AMD when it comes to these things. We always talk about Intel.
Oh, they're fantastic.
But the
AMD
AMD
is great.
processors are good.
And, you don't have any of the worries that we've talked about today, you don't have with AMD because it is an x86 or x64 based
That's right.
system. So they've got some good stuff. And they actually are closer than Intel is to getting the more efficient chip that would compete with the.
They got the first letter.
Oh, well done.
They've got,
A.
They get A. They've got the M.
At least we can agree it's called arm and not leg. Right, Stephen?
yes.
Okay, yeah, fine.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
I'll give you that one. Definitely arm, not leg. Listen,
And by the way,
great.
it's
Yes.
an arm on your glasses too.
Thank you, Greg.
No, Greg, it's been wonderful having you on. You can't be right about everything. Listen, thank you for coming on. And listen, we'll talk soon. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. It's lots of fun. Good to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, still not convinced about that whole arm and leg thing. But anyway, that's it for today. We will be back tomorrow talking about what happened at the Microsoft event. You may already be consuming the news yourself, but we will be giving our double tap reaction right here on the show tomorrow. And of course, more of your emails to come as well. Sean Preece, as always, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.